In the world of Avatar, the Avatar cycle has been going on for thousands of years, and while most of us are familiar with Aang and Korra, there's a whole line of Avatars who came before them, each with a different story and legacy. Some were powerful warriors, others were spiritual leaders, and a few had surprisingly tragic pasts. Today we'll explore all 11 known Avatars in chronological order, and uncover what truly made each of them unique. Let's start with the very first Avatar in history, Avatar Wan. Wan was born 10,000 years before Avatar Korra in a city built on the back of a giant fire lion turtle. At that time, lion turtles protected humans from spirits and granted them the ability to bend one of the 4 elements. One day, Wan received the power of fire bending after volunteering for a hunting party, but he misused this power by attacking humans and was consequently banished from the city. Before leaving, Wan asked the lion turtle if he could at least keep the fire to defend himself against the spirits, and the lion turtle accepted his request. After being forced out into the spirit wilds, Wan befriended the spirits and was accepted among them. A white dragon even taught him how to truly master fire bending, much like how Aang and Zuko would learn from the 2 dragons thousands of years later. After mastering fire bending, Wan began traveling the world to find the other lion turtle cities. During his journey, he came across 2 massive spirits locked in battle, Rava, the spirit of light, and Vatu, the spirit of darkness. Wan intervened using his fire bending to separate them, only to realize he had made a terrible mistake. You see, Rava and Vatu had been battling for 10,000 years to maintain the balance of light and darkness in the world. By setting Vatu free, Wan unleashed darkness and chaos upon the world that Rava could no longer control on her own. That's why Wan decided to team up with Rava, and the two went from one lion turtle city to the next until he had mastered all 4 elements. However, since humans weren't naturally able to bend more than one element, Wan had to fuse with Rava each time he wanted to use another. Eventually, during the harmonic convergence, an event where the North and South spirit portals merge every 10,000 years, Wan, Rava, and Vatu faced off in a battle that would decide the fate of the world. Vatu initially had the upper hand, but when Wan permanently fused his soul with Rava, he entered the first Avatar state. With their combined power, they defeated Vatu and imprisoned him inside the Tree of Time for the next 10,000 years. Wan then closed the portals between the spirit and mortal worlds, making the Avatar the sole bridge between them. From that moment on, it became the Avatar's duty to maintain peace, not only among the 4 nations, but also between humans and spirits. Before we continue, do me a quick favor, guys. We're working really hard to reach 100k subscribers and get that silver play button by the end of the year. So hit that subscribe button if you enjoy our content. It would mean the world to me. The second known Avatar in history is Zalir, who we don't know much about. In the Reckoning of Roku, she is described as an athletically built woman with short hair. We also know that she was a Fire Nation Avatar and lived before the unification of the Fire Islands. The next known Avatar is Avatar Gun, who lived during the Ru Ming era. Much like Zalir, Gun remains a mystery. We don't know their gender or even their original element. At some point in their life, Gun apparently failed to control a tsunami, which led to the death of their close friend. Devastated by this loss, Gun disappeared for a brief period of time before returning to continue their duties as the Avatar. The next known Avatar in history is Avatar Salai, who we know even less about. The only thing we do know is that they are remembered as one of the greatest avatars who ever lived. Moving on to Avatar Szeto, a Fire Nation avatar who lived 7 cycles before Avatar Korra. While many avatars are known for their feats in battle, Seto's most notable victories were political. He was born into a time of great crisis in the Fire Nation. Plagues and natural disasters devastated the people's livelihoods, while violent conflicts between noble clans threatened to tear the nation apart. That's why Szeto decided to set aside his role as the Avatar and chose to save his homeland by becoming a bureaucrat, diplomat, and accountant in service of the Fire Lord. Eventually rising to the position of Grand Advisor, he strengthened the Fire Nation's government, restored economic stability, and created programs to help the poor and needy. Despite his administrative talents, Szeto was also a powerful bender, as seen when he used lava bending to control 4 volcanoes simultaneously. Szeto was a highly respected figure even beyond the Fire Nation. However, not everyone viewed him favorably. Some accused him of being biased toward the Fire Nation and favoring it over the other 3 nations. Moving on to the next Avatar who came immediately after Szeto, Avatar Yangchen. Yangchen was born at the Western Air Temple and raised by air nuns. She discovered she was the Avatar at just 11 years old, after constantly having visions of the Avatars who lived before her. In fact, everything we know about Avatar Gun comes from those very visions. Yangchen's spiritual abilities were exceptionally strong from a very young age. On her first attempt at meditation, she was able to cross over into the spirit world, and she didn't go alone. She was joined by her closest friend, Jetson, whom she saw as an older sister. While exploring the spirit world, Yangchen was struck by a powerful memory from one of her past lives. Unfortunately, that moment led to the death of Jetson, whose soul was trapped in the fog of lost souls. Yangchen's first mission as the Avatar began just 1 week after she had mastered all 4 elements. She was called to face a powerful spirit known as General Old Iron, who intended to destroy a human city, blaming its people for the death of his close friend, Lady Tianhai. After a long battle that lasted the entire night, Yangchen managed to strike a deal with the spirit. General Old Iron agreed never to take up his armor against humanity as long as the land remained free of human civilization. Yangchen's first mission as the Avatar ended in victory. However, this wouldn't be the last time we hear of General Old Iron. He would return again during the life of a future Avatar, but we'll get into that later in this video. Yangchen's attention eventually turned to the Shang merchants, who had become extremely wealthy and powerful. The Shang were a dominant socioeconomic and political class, controlling every city that was open to international trade at the time. Yangchen began an official tour of the Shang cities, which ultimately led her to uncover the Unanimity Project. This project was a plot proposed by the Shang merchants, aiming to use 3 combustion benders as living weapons to threaten or even assassinate world leaders. Yangchen confronted the combustion benders, and it became clear that despite her pacifist nature as an air nomad, she would do whatever was necessary for the sake of peace. She used a ruthless technique that involved removing the air from the room the combustion benders were in until they fell unconscious. She then had them imprisoned in the mountains near the Northern Air Temple, bringing an end to the Unanimity Project. However, this victory came at a personal cost. During the conflict with the Shang, Yangchen lost yet another close companion, her flying bison, who sacrificed himself to protect her. One more thing worth noting is that Yangchen developed a unique airbending technique specifically designed to counter combustion bending. The technique, known as airless void, removes all air from the target area, creating a sphere of hard vacuum that instantly snuffs out the combustion blast by cutting off its oxygen supply. Another great feat of Avatar Yangchen was the treaty she signed with the leader of the Fifth Nation, a powerful group of pirates who had roamed the southern and eastern seas of the Earth Kingdom for generations. Yangchen negotiated directly with one of the pirate lords, securing an agreement that the pirates would never attack the southern coast of the Earth Kingdom. The Fifth Nation would honor this treaty for many years. However, they would eventually break it and resume their attacks during the life of a future Avatar, but we'll get to that later in this video. Over time, Yangchen became well learned and studied many different philosophies, including the writings of Guru Lahima and Guru Shokin. Her political decisions had a long-lasting impact, and her dedication as the Avatar led to a prolonged era of peace. In fact, her influence was so great that even after her death, no wars were waged between the 4 nations for an entire generation out of respect for her legacy. However, it's important to note that Yangchen's impact on the world wasn't entirely positive. When humans and spirits came into conflict, she often sided with the humans, trusting they would keep their promise and respect the physical world. But when they ultimately failed to do so, the spirits would grow angry. Yangchen's choice to favor humans over spirits led to a surge of dark spirits during the time of her successor, Avatar Kuruk. Yangchen passed away in 345 BG, most likely of old age, as there are no records of her being killed or dying unexpectedly. Moving on to Avatar Kuruk, who probably has the most tragic backstory of all the Avatars. Kuruk was born in the Northern Water Tribe shortly after Avatar Yangchen passed away. He was told he was the Avatar when he turned 16, and soon after, he began traveling the world to master all 4 elements. During his journey, he made 3 friends from the other nations who also became his teachers: Jianju from Ba Sing Se, Kelsang from the Southern Air Temple, and Hei Ran from the Fire Nation. After mastering all 4 elements, Kuruk and his friends went on adventures together. Their first mission was for Kuruk to unlock the Avatar state, so they traveled to a remote, uninhabited island in case he lost control. And that's exactly what happened. When Kuruk entered the Avatar state for the first time, he destroyed the entire island and nearly killed his friends in the process. After Kuruk mastered the Avatar state, Kelsang confessed that he had once entered the spirit world unintentionally, so Kuruk asked him to guide him there. The team decided to travel to a meadow in Yaoping, a place where Avatar Yangchen used to train often. Kuruk and Kelsang successfully crossed over into the spirit world, and this was where the good things stopped happening for the Avatar. While in the spirit world, he was confronted by a dark spirit known as the Heartwalker, who was planning to attack Yaoping town. Before Kuruk could speak to the spirit, it launched an attack, and a fierce battle broke out between the two. Kuruk managed to defeat the Heartwalker. However, he later realized that fighting the spirit had drained a portion of his own vitality. The damage affected both his body and spirit, leaving him in constant pain for the rest of his life. As a result of Avatar Yangchen's pro-human actions, more dark spirits began trying to cross over into the physical world. To prevent his friends from going through the same pain he did, Kuruk chose to face these spirits alone. Instead of letting them wreak havoc in the physical world, he would travel to the spirit world himself and kill them. But each time he fought, it cost him more and more of his vitality, adding to the pain he was already carrying. To dull that constant pain, Kuruk started drinking heavily just to feel some relief. And that's when things really started to go downhill for him. He started getting involved in things no avatar should, like chasing women and entering countless brief relationships, which earned him a reputation as a heartbreaker. When he wasn't forced to fight dark spirits, Kuruk spent much of his time searching for worthy opponents to challenge in bending contests just for entertainment and pleasure. He liked showing off his bending skills, especially to impress beautiful women. He also really enjoyed playing Pai Sho and was considered one of the greatest players to ever live. Uncle Iroh would be proud. What's truly sad is that Kuruk's friends, his family, and the entire world had no idea about the sacrifices he was making. All they saw was a broken man who seemed like nothing more than a hedonist. After fighting spirits for many years, Kuruk eventually discovered that the source of the dark spirits was actually a single spirit. He focused all his efforts on tracking it down until he finally confronted Father Glowworm, the strongest spirit Kuruk had ever faced. Though Father Glowworm was much more powerful, Kuruk was too stubborn to give up and managed to grievously wound the spirit. Father Glowworm managed to escape. However, Kuruk had done enough lasting damage to ensure it wouldn't threaten the physical world for at least a generation. But Father Glowworm wasn't the only one seriously injured in this battle. Kuruk also suffered damage far greater than any he had before. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse for Kuruk, I've got bad news because the worst was yet to come. Kuruk continued with his hedonistic lifestyle until the day he met Umi, a girl from the Southern Water Tribe. The two fell in love at first sight and decided to get married at the Spirit Oasis. But on the night of their wedding, tragedy struck. Umi fell into the oasis, and it was as if some unseen force pulled her in. She was dragged into the spirit world by Ko, the Face Stealer, as punishment for Kuruk's constant battles against the spirits. Every year, on the anniversary of their wedding, Kuruk would enter the spirit world in hopes of saving her, but he failed every single time. Avatar Kuruk passed away in 312 BG at the age of just 33 due to the overwhelming damage to his body and soul, making him the youngest known avatar. On the day of his death, he gathered his 3 friends and urged them to find the next avatar and take care of them. Even after death, his spirit continued to roam the spirit world, still searching for his wife. Eventually, he found Ko and was ready to kill him, but then realized that killing the spirit would also mean killing his wife, so he couldn't bring himself to do it. I honestly don't know how to feel about that. Like, I get it. He loved his wife too much, but at the same time, why wouldn't you just kill the spirit and let Umi's soul finally rest in peace? But anyway, let's move on to Kuruk's successor, who ironically was the avatar that lived the longest, Avatar Kyoshi. Kyoshi was born in the Earth Kingdom, and when she was just 5 years old, her parents abandoned her in a village called Yokoya. They left behind a chest with some of their belongings, but Kyoshi wouldn't open it until much later in her life. Kyoshi was now homeless and had to survive by eating garbage, but despite the hardship, she grew unusually tall. At the time, Kyoshi had no idea she was the avatar. Meanwhile, Avatar Kuruk's friends were searching for the next avatar and came across a talented earthbender named Yoon, mistakenly identifying him as the avatar. They then built a mansion to train him, which happened to be near Kyoshi's village, and Kyoshi ended up working there as a servant. While at the mansion, Kyoshi became close friends with Yoon and Heiran's daughter, Rangi, who had been appointed as Yoon's bodyguard. When Kyoshi turned 16, she joined Yoon's team on a mission to the South Pole, where he was set to sign a treaty with the pirates of the Fifth Nation. However, things quickly took a turn when the leader of the Fifth Nation revealed that the meeting was actually a trap to capture the Avatar. That's when Kyoshi entered the Avatar state for the first time and pulled off something insane. She lifted Earth from deep beneath the seafloor and obliterated much of the Fifth Nation's fleet. The team then captured the leader of the pirates, bringing an end to the Fifth Nation. With the identity of the Avatar now in question, Jianju took Yoon and Kyoshi to a cave in the mountains to find out which of them was the real Avatar. The two assumed they were going to attempt to trigger the Avatar state, but suddenly Jianju lit an incense that paralyzed both of them. He then summoned none other than Father Glowworm, the evil spirit that had severely damaged Avatar Kuruk. The spirit took blood from both teenagers and confirmed that Kyoshi was the true Avatar. Then, in a shocking betrayal, Jianju left Yoon to be taken by the spirit and dragged Kyoshi away to safety. Father Glowworm glowworm pulled Yun deeper into the cave, leaving his companions to assume he was dead. Kyoshi screamed in anguish over losing her close friend and began attacking Jianju as soon as she regained some mobility, but Jianju used earthbending to restrain her, nearly suffocating her before letting her go at the last second. At that moment, Kelsang appeared unexpectedly and tried to protect Kyoshi, which led to a fierce battle between the two former friends. Unfortunately, the fight ended quickly when Jianju killed Kelsang, enraging Kyoshi so much that she involuntarily entered the Avatar state. She destroyed everything around her, burying Jianju beneath the rubble. However, he managed to survive using his earthbending and resurfaced to find that Kyoshi was gone. Kyoshi made it back to the Avatar mansion safely and told Rengi everything that had happened. The two decided to escape, but before leaving, Kyoshi opened her parents' chest for the first time. Inside, she found metal fans, a headdress, makeup, and a journal. She read the journal and discovered that her parents were once the leaders of one of the most powerful crime networks in the Earth Kingdom, the Flying Opera Company. As Kyoshi and Rangi had nowhere else to go, they decided to join the criminal organization, which was now reduced to only 4 members. It included 3 earthbenders, Lek, Wang, and the very old Lao Ge, and 1 waterbender, Kirima. Despite their small number, Kyoshi now had her own version of Team Avatar, one that could help her master 3 elements and become strong enough to take down Jianju. Lao Ge even taught her a self-proclaimed method to achieve immortality, as he was rumored to have lived for over 4,000 years. Kyoshi and her team went on several missions together, and during those missions, they all wore the makeup found in her parents' chest, marking the beginning of Kyoshi's iconic look. However, Jianju soon located Kyoshi and ambushed her team, kidnapping Rangi and killing Lek in the process. This devastated Kyoshi and made her more determined than ever to kill Jianju. Eventually, she confronted Jianju in a village, and after a tense conversation, the two began to fight. They proved to be evenly matched, until, in a shocking twist, Yun appeared out of nowhere and ruthlessly killed Jianju before disappearing without a word. Kyoshi sensed that something essential and human was missing from Yun, but couldn't quite tell what it was. Meanwhile, Wang and Kirima went to the Avatar mansion and successfully saved Rangi. After the battle, Kyoshi decided to part ways with her team and travel the world to finally reveal herself as the Avatar. She started by going to the Southern Air Temple to master airbending, as air was the last element she hadn't mastered yet. She then launched a one-person crusade against the Earth Kingdom's worst criminal groups in Ba Sing Se, wiping out several of them entirely. She also searched for Yun to find out what really happened to her friend, but found no trace of him. Kyoshi later reunited with Rangi and Hei Ran during a visit to the Fire Nation for the festival of Szeto, which was attended by nobles and other important figures. However, the event turned into chaos when Yun suddenly appeared and killed several nobles. Kyoshi confronted him and asked what he wanted, and Yun told her he wanted justice from everyone who lied to him about his avatarhood by killing them. He even went after Hei Ran, but Kyoshi arrived just in time to save her before Yun vanished once again. Before we go any further, I think it's time to tell you what really happened to Yun after Jianju betrayed him. Father Glowworm took him into the spirit world, where the two fought in a brutal battle that ended with Yun's victory after he ate the spirit. That's right, the very same spirit that Avatar Kuruk couldn't defeat was eaten by Yun. That's how powerful he is. Before facing Yun for the final time, Kyoshi spent the next month learning advanced healing techniques from a waterbender named Atuat, including the delicate art of lowering the body's temperature to slow down the process of death itself. Shortly after, Kyoshi was able to sense Yun's location by connecting with Kuruk's memories of Father Glowworm. The two finally met at the Avatar Mansion, where a massive battle broke out between them. Yun initially had the upper hand and caught Kyoshi off guard when he liquefied the stone floor without heat to trap her. He then explained to Kyoshi that he never intended to hurt her, as she was the only one truly innocent in the whole affair. Suddenly, Kyoshi's friends from the Flying Opera burst in to save her and began attacking Yun, but they were no match for the false Avatar. He quickly overpowered them and went on to stab Rangi through the back with an earthen spike. As Rangi fell to the ground, Yun warned Kyoshi that moments like this would keep happening if she kept trying to stop him. Kyoshi began apologizing for taking his avatarhood, momentarily gaining his interest and trust as he stepped closer. She then placed her hand on his chest, seemingly to comfort him, but instead, she used the technique she'd learned from Atuat to rapidly lower his body temperature. Before Yun realized what was happening, Kyoshi had frozen his heart and lungs solid, killing him and ending his crusade once and for all. She then rushed to Rangi's side and used the Avatar state to heal her. After her battle with Yoon, Kyoshi continued fulfilling her duties as the Avatar. Along her journey, she eventually founded both the Kyoshi warriors and the Dai Li to help maintain balance in the world. She later confronted Qin the Conqueror and killed him by splitting her homeland from the mainland, creating what is now known as Kyoshi Island. Avatar Kyoshi passed away in the year 82 BG at the age of 230, thanks to the immortality technique she learned from Laoge. Moving on to Avatar Roku, who came right after Avatar Kyoshi. Roku was born into a noble Fire Nation family alongside his twin brother Yasu. His relationship with his parents was not so good, as they clearly favored Yasu over him. During their childhood, Roku and Yasu often visited the royal palace, where they met Prince Sozin, who interestingly shared the same birthday as them. The three quickly became friends, but even then, Roku wasn't so lucky. Much like his parents, Sozin seemed to favor Yasu, and before long, the two began leaving Roku out of their activities. However, everything changed one night when Roku and Yasu snuck out for a secret midnight swim during a heavy storm. Unfortunately, Yasu vanished without a trace and was presumed to have drowned. After the tragedy, Roku's relationship with his parents became even worse, as they blamed him for not saving his brother. On the other hand, Sozin got closer to Roku and the two eventually became best friends. Roku later met a girl named Ta Min and developed a strong crush on her. However, he would get so nervous around her that they never really had any meaningful conversation. When Roku turned 16, he was informed by the Fire Sages that he was the Avatar. The young Avatar was initially overwhelmed by the news, as he had never seen himself as someone of great importance. But Sozin was there to encourage him, and even gave him his royal headpiece as a gift. What the young Avatar didn't know was that while Sozin's words had been genuine, the headpiece gift had been secretly ordered by Fire Lord Taiso as part of a manipulation plot to remind him of his true loyalties. Yeah, the Fire Nation was always like that. Roku soon left the Fire Nation to begin his journey to master the other three elements. He first traveled to the Southern Air Temple to learn airbending from Sister Disha, a friend of Avatar Kyoshi during the final years of her life. He also met Gyatso, who would one day become Avatar Aang's airbending master, and the two quickly became close friends. While Roku was busy learning airbending, Sozin was busy learning about the mysterious Lambic Island in the Fire Nation, which was rumored to have the power to enhance bending abilities significantly. Sozin then sent a message to Roku, asking him to investigate the island. Roku accepted the request, and as soon as he arrived, he sensed that something fishy was going on. He discovered a spiritual cave that greatly enhanced bending abilities. However, there was no way to use that boosted power outside the cave. The cave was controlled by the Lambic clan, a group that had lived in self-isolation for thousands of years due to a deep mistrust of outsiders. Seeing Roku as one of those outsiders, the clan's leader attacked him, hoping to sacrifice him to the spirits in order to gain that same power outside the cave. But Roku unleashed the full force of his fire bending, and with the cave's amplification, his flames became so hot that they turned into iridescent fire. His overwhelming power destroyed the cave entirely and killed the clan leader in the process. Roku then used airbending and earthbending for the first time after connecting with Avatar Kyoshi to escape to safety. After the battle, Roku convinced Sozin to give the people of the island their autonomy, and in return, the Lambic clan accepted the overlordship of the Fire Nation. After mastering airbending, Roku traveled to the Northern Water Tribe and later to the Earth Kingdom to learn waterbending and earthbending. Waterbending was especially difficult for him as a firebender, since water is the natural opposite of fire. At some point in his journey, Roku found a dragon egg, but its parents were nowhere to be found. He decided to raise the young dragon himself and named it Fang, who went on to become his animal guide and lifelong companion. After mastering all four elements, Roku traveled to a Fire Nation temple to master the Avatar state. It took him 5 months, but he finally entered the Avatar state for the first time during the winter solstice. However, he couldn't control its power, which led to the destruction of the upper half of the fire temple and triggered the eruption of a nearby volcano. Following the incident, Roku became more patient and disciplined in his training, and over time he gained full control over the Avatar state. Roku eventually returned to the Northern Air Temple, where he learned that war was on the verge of breaking out between the Northern Water Tribe and the Earth Kingdom after a tsunami struck the northern coast of the Earth Kingdom. The Earth Kingdom blamed waterbenders for sending the tsunami, while the Water Tribe accused earthbenders of causing an underwater earthquake, but in reality, it was simply a horrible natural disaster. Fortunately, Roku, along with a few air nomad masters, intervened before things could escalate, and both sides backed down from attacking each other. By the time Roku returned to the Fire Nation Nation capital, he had become a fully realized Avatar. He reunited with his old friend Sozin, who had become the new Fire Lord, but he was still his best friend. A few months later, Roku married his childhood crush, Ta-Min, with Sozin serving as his best man during the ceremony. After the wedding, Sozin shared his intention of uniting the four nations, believing that together they could spread the Fire Nation's prosperity and wealth to the rest of the world. Roku was horrified by the idea, telling Sozin that the four nations were meant to remain separate, and warned him never to speak of it again. Roku eventually settled down with his wife on a quiet island, and the two later had a daughter named Rina. 17 years after his wedding, Roku discovered that Sozin had gone ahead with his plans to conquer the world and had already established colonies within the Earth Kingdom. Enraged by this, Roku confronted Sozin inside the royal palace and ordered him to stop his expansion. As the Avatar turned to leave, Sozin attacked him from behind, but Roku easily dodged the attack, entered the Avatar state, and destroyed the palace. He spared Sozin's life for the sake of their past friendship, but warned him once again to abandon his plans or it would lead to his permanent end. However, the Avatar did allow the first group of Fire Nation colonists to remain in their new homes within the Earth Kingdom. 25 years later, Roku's home island was struck by a massive volcanic eruption, so powerful that even Sozin could see and feel it from his palace 100 miles away. Using his mastery of all four elements, Roku managed to buy enough time for the island's inhabitants, including his wife, to escape to safety. He then did everything he could to hold back the volcano, but the poisonous gases and his old age made it too much to handle alone. Just when Roku was beginning to lose hope, Sozin arrived on his dragon and offered his help to the Avatar. And while he initially helped Roku get the situation somewhat under control, he eventually betrayed him and abandoned him to die. Just before the volcanic lava consumed Roku, Fang curled up beside his master and the two died together. Let's move on to Roku's successor, Avatar Aang. Now for both Aang and Korra, I'll be focusing on the events that took place after their shows ended, since I assume anyone who clicked on this video has already seen them. After the 100-Year War, Aang joined the Earth King Kuei and Fire Lord Zuko and Ba Sing Se to remove the Fire Nation colonies in the Earth Kingdom and return the Fire Nation citizens to their homeland. But after a year, Zuko unexpectedly withdrew his support for the decolonization efforts. He argued that in the 100 years since colonies like Yu Dao were founded, people from both nations had built a new kind of culture, where earthbenders and firebenders lived side by side and mixed families had formed. However, Aang still saw the colonies as a continued threat to the balance between the four nations. The Avatar and Fire Lord couldn't agree on a solution, which eventually led to a fight between them, but luckily it was quickly stopped by Katara. Things only got worse when the Earth King sent an army to forcibly remove the colony, sparking a battle between Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation forces. Thankfully, the fight didn't last long, as Aang stepped in and put an end to the conflict. After the battle, Aang eventually realized that the four nations shouldn't be divided by borders any longer, and he convinced the Earth King to allow the old colonies to stay. After solving the Yu Dao crisis, Aang, Katara, and Sokka joined Zuko in his search for his mother, Ursa. To their horror, they were forced to work with Azula since she had crucial information about Ursa's whereabouts. Their journey led them to a remote village where they stayed with two friendly locals, Norin and Noriko, and their daughter Ki. The family told the team that they might find answers about Ursa in a deeply spiritual forest known as the Forgetful Valley. Aang and his friends quickly traveled there and found the Mother of Faces, an ancient spirit with the power to give faces to humans and other living creatures. A fun fact about this spirit is that she's actually the mother of Ko the Face Stealer, which is a bit ironic. The spirit revealed that she had helped Ursa start a new life by giving her a new face and erasing all her memories. The team was shocked to realize that Ursa was actually the woman they had met earlier, Noriko. Zuko quickly returned to see her and told her that he was her son, but they were interrupted by Azula, who went after her mother. Zuko confronted his sister, and after a tense argument, Azula gave up and ran off into the wilds. Soon after, the Mother of Faces restored Ursa's original face and memories, and Zuko was finally reunited with his mother. Aang and his friends then accompanied Zuko's new family back to the Fire Nation capital, where they lived together for the rest of their lives. A few months later, Aang visited Cranefish Town, where he encountered none other than General Old Iron. The spirit was furious because the deal he had made with Avatar Yangchen had been broken. Humans not only started living on the land that was supposed to remain untouched, but they also built a factory that completely polluted the area. Aang tried to reason with General Old Iron, but the spirit refused to listen and attacked his friends with the intention of killing them. This forced Aang to enter the Avatar state and deeply wound the spirit, causing General Old Iron to retreat. But before leaving, the spirit began to cry and told Aang that there was no longer a place for spirits in the human world. His final words left Aang heartbroken, and he began to question his choices as the Avatar. Suddenly, General Old Iron's old friend, Lady Tianhai, appeared and revealed that she hadn't truly died. She explained that she had willingly given up her immortality to take on a human form because she had fallen in love and wanted to marry a man. She also told Aang that General Old Iron was wrong, that spirits would always have a place in the world as long as humans were willing to create one for them. Sometime later, Aang traveled to the Fire Nation to help Zuko, who was dealing with reports of dark spirits known as the Komori Kage. Aang learned that the spirits had kidnapped several children, including Zuko's sister Ki and Mai's brother Tom Tom. To understand why the spirits were attacking, Aang contacted a Komori Kage who told him that their kind hadn't left the spirit world in thousands of years. This revelation led Aang to realize that the kidnappers weren't spirits at all, but actually human imposters. Aang and his friends eventually tracked down the kidnappers and discovered that their leader was Azula. After a tense conversation and a long battle between Zuko and his sister, Aang and the others were able to rescue the missing children. However, the kidnappers, including Azula, managed to escape. Aang then traveled to the South Pole to spend some time with Sokka and Katara. While there, the Avatar had to deal with Southern Water Tribe nationalists led by Gilak, who wanted to overthrow Katara's father, Hakoda, as head chieftain of the South. After helping to stop an initial nationalist attack, Team Avatar met with Hakoda and other leaders from the four nations to come up with a plan. Gilak and his allies used this opportunity to attack and capture Hakoda, but Aang and Katara were able to rescue him. However, the nationalists still managed to capture the Earth King, which led to a tense hostage exchange at the Bridge of No Return. The situation quickly escalated into a skirmish, ending with Gilak falling to his death and the defeat of the nationalists. After resolving the tensions in the South Pole, Team Avatar traveled back to Cranefish Town, where they learned about a bending supremacist movement that had been attacking non-benders. The gang decided to investigate, and with some clever disguises, they managed to infiltrate an underground meeting of the supremacists and capture their leader, Liling. Toph suggested to Aang that he take away Liling's bending, but the Avatar hesitated, and before he could make a decision, Liling managed to escape. The supremacist leader then started an uprising against the entire town, but it was quickly put down by Team Avatar. Aang was able to capture Liling once again, but he decided not to take away her bending to avoid creating more tension between benders and non-benders. After the battle, Team Avatar decided to settle down in Cranefish Town, seeing it as a special place and wanting to help it grow into a better community. Over the next few decades, Aang worked alongside Zuko and the Earth King to transform all Fire Nation colonies into the United Republic of Nations. Cranefish Town was renamed Republic City and became the new state's capital, home to people from all nations. The Avatar then dedicated himself to restoring the 4 ancient air temples and even constructed a 5th one near the heart of Republic City called Air Temple Island. Sometime during this period, Aang married Katara, and together they had 3 children, Bumi, Kaya, and Tenzin. Because of Aang's additional responsibility to preserve air nomad culture, he spent more time traveling with Tenzin in order to pass on air nomad traditions. This made Bumi and Kaya feel somewhat distant from their father, but ultimately the whole family loved each other a great deal. Avatar Aang passed away at the relatively young age of 66, as the 100 years he spent frozen in the iceberg while in the Avatar state had drained much of his life energy. Before his death, Aang tasked the Order of the White Lotus with finding and watching over the next Avatar, who turned out to be a hot-headed and rebellious girl from the Southern Water Tribe. And finally, let's talk about the last known Avatar, Avatar Korra. The final scene of the show saw Korra opening a new spirit portal right in the middle of Republic City. It didn't take long for that to cause problems. The land surrounding the portal was owned by a man named Yangchen, who decided to turn it into an amusement park that would send tourists into the spirit world. His plans enraged the spirits, who urged Korra to close the portal as it would only lead to new conflicts between humans and spirits. Korra didn't want to close the portal, but she ultimately sided with the spirits to protect the area from being exploited. To settle the dispute, she met with President Raiko and asked him to buy the land from Kaum, but he refused, saying they didn't have enough money. At that point, Korra and her friends had enough of Raiko as president, so they encouraged Zhu Li to run against him in the upcoming election. Korra later went to Air Temple Island, where she reunited with her team. However, their reunion was cut short by Janora's spirit projection, warning them of a new conflict at the spirit portal. When Korra's team arrived, they found the triple threat triad, now led by their new leader, Tokuga, attacking the spirits. Korra's team quickly joined forces with the spirits and the airbenders to fight off the triad and protect the portal. As the fight went on, the spirits began to turn dark, and one of them attacked Takuga, disfiguring the Triad leader. This caused the Triad members to retreat, and the spirits returned to the spirit world. The following day, Korra discovered that Asami and Kyum had been kidnapped by the Triple Threat. Now held captive by Takuga, Asami was forced to build a poison gas bomb and attach it to his airship as part of his plan to take control of Republic City. Korra eventually confronted Takuga inside the airship, and with the help of Asami and Kyum, she was able to defeat the Triad leader. After the battle, Kyum agreed to give up his claim to the land around the portal as thanks for the Avatar saving his life, finally bringing peace with the spirits. Several weeks later, Korra attended the announcement of the election results, where Zhu Li did the thing and became the new president of the United Republic. One of her first decisions was to grant the land around the portal to the Air Nation, as she believed they were the right people to protect it. Following Zhu Li's election as president, Korra attended Kuvira's trial for the crime she committed as the leader of the Earth Empire, where Kuvira pleaded not guilty. Around the same time, King Wu announced the beginning of democratic elections across the Earth Kingdom. Later, Korra and her friends were summoned to a meeting with President Zhu Li, where they were shocked to learn that an Earth Empire holdout was still active in the state of Gaoling. The holdout was led by one of Kuvira's former officers, Commander Guan, who had refused to surrender and was now planning his own path to power. Korra decided to visit Kuvira in prison in order to get more information about Commander Guan. After a brief conversation, Korra realized that Kuvira might be the only person capable of convincing the remaining Earth Empire forces to surrender, so she suggested releasing her temporarily. Team Avatar then traveled with Kuvira and Prince Wu to Gaoling, and upon arriving in the city, they met with Guan and his army. Kuvira urged them to surrender and accept that the Earth Empire had been defeated, but Guan refused and revealed that they didn't plan to control the Earth Kingdom through force, but through democracy. He declared his candidacy for governor of Gaoling and announced that the Earth Empire would have candidates across every state in the upcoming elections. After realizing they couldn't stop Guan from becoming a candidate, Korra suggested they should try to convince Toph to run against him in the election. The team decided to split up. Korra and Wu headed to the Foggy Swamp to find Toph, while the rest of the team traveled to Zaofu to keep Kuvira there until the election was over. Korra and Wu eventually found Toph in her cave, and it took some convincing, but she agreed to return with them to Gaoling and registered herself as a candidate. The group then set out to reunite with the rest of the team, but were shocked to find Kuvira disguised as an Earth Empire soldier along the way. Kuvira revealed that on their journey to Zaofu, Guan's forces had captured Korra's friends and brainwashed them, just like the Dai Li used to do. Korra was skeptical at first, but Toph used her truth-seeing ability to confirm that Kuvira was telling the truth. They realized that Guan was also planning to brainwash Earth Kingdom citizens to secure victory in the election. Kuvira also told them she had radioed Su Yin for help, and just as she was explaining, reinforcements from Zaofu arrived aboard an airship. However, just as they were about to leave Gaoling, they were suddenly confronted by Guan's forces, along with Korra's brainwashed friends. Guan ordered them to attack the Avatar and her allies, forcing Korra to fight her own friends. After a small confrontation, Korra managed to retrieve Asami only, while Mako and Bolin were left with the Earth Empire forces, and King Wu was also captured in the chaos. As they were heading to Zaofu on the airship, the group was focused on finding a way to reverse Asami's brainwashing. Kuvira believed that the only person who might be able to undo it was her former fiancé, Batar Jr. Once they arrived in Zaofu, they wasted no time to see Batar, who was under house arrest due to his past actions. Batar was still upset with Kuvira, and understandably so, considering she nearly killed him in the finale. But eventually, the two put their differences aside to work on a way to reverse the brainwashing technique. After many attempts, Batar was able to successfully reverse Asami's brainwashing with Kuvira's help. However, there wasn't much time to celebrate, as they were informed that Guan had won the election thanks to brainwashing King Wu. Korra then contacted Zhu Li, and they agreed that Kuvira should be returned to prison in Republic City until they could figure out what to do next. However, later that night, Kuvira stole a plane and escaped to write her own redemption arc. She said to hell with democracy and launched a one-woman mission to stop Guan by force. Expertly remaining undetected, she snuck into Guan's room and attacked him, but was interrupted by brainwashed Bolin and Mako. Luckily, Korra, Asami, and the Beifongs arrived just in time, and together they fought against the Earth Empire forces. The fight quickly ended with Kuvira showing Guan who's the boss and forcing him to surrender, ending the Earth Empire once and for all. Korra then helped the Earth Empire prisoners, including her friends and King Wu, get their brainwashing cured. Korra then returned to Republic City to attend Kuvira's new trial, where this time she entered a guilty plea after giving a full confession of her crimes. crimes. Due to her remorse and her role in stopping the Earth Empire, the court decided on a less severe sentence and placed her under house arrest in Suyin's custody, just like Baatar Jr. Though we don't know when or how, Avatar Korra eventually passed away and was reincarnated as a female Earth Avatar, who we'll get to know in the upcoming animated series, Seven Havens. And there you have it, the entire story of the 11 known avatars explained. If you enjoyed the video, we'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button, as it took us a lot of time and effort to make this video possible. Click here to check out all 18 special and forbidden bending abilities in Avatar.